Yo, yo, yo. Gang, 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 gang. Back again for another week, man. Couple things. My bad for being 2 minutes late here. We're having some technical difficulties with Streamlabs, man. Streamlabs, get it together. But what's good with everybody, man? Coming off a dope weekend, man. What's good? I see Classy Beats. I see Lano. I see Lace Bacon. Who else is in here, man? Jake Prism. What's good? What's good? What's good? Affidavit. Okay. I see gang in here. I see gang. I see J17. I see everybody. What's good, man? Yo, we got a legend in the building today, man. First of all, I want to thank everybody for supporting the merch. We had a great weekend. We're coming off of one of our most successful drops, man. I definitely appreciate everybody. Let me send a text out to Early Gang just to let them know that we are live. This is a big episode, man. Super hyped to have Anthony Kilhoffer on the episode today, man. A legend, really a legend, man. And I gotta put it out there, man. I was a little asleep. I was definitely familiar, but I wasn't familiar with all the accolades. We got a legend on the morning show today. Right now. Forgive me, guys. We're gonna get him in here in 2 seconds. We just dropped the link to text gang. Bet it up. All right, so I sent the link out. Let me get the Zoom is good. Let me open the Zoom. Man, so I was talking to I obviously, we're gonna go through our background information. I was talking to Mr. Kilhoffer on Friday, man. Shout out to I forget, man. Please forgive me if you're in the chat, man. Someone from the community, someone from the chat actually plugged me into Anthony Kilhoffer that he connected us through where'd we go? There we go. Connected us through email, and then we chopped it up on the phone. So he'll be here in just a couple minutes, but obviously, we gotta go through our background information because this is there's some crazy stuff here that I gotta show you guys. Okay, I think we finally got it together. So I sent out the text. If you got it, throw 100 in the chat or something like that. If you're text gang and you just got that text. And man, shout out! You guys know I've been responding since I started it. A couple people are like, they text me, they're like, "Yo, you won't respond. I bet you won't respond." And I'm like, I'm like, I bet I will. I bet I did. I bet I just did. And people are like, "Oh shit, yo, that's crazy. I didn't think this was real. I thought this was a bot." But yeah, it's definitely me. Ruben, yeah, man. Shout out to Ruben. Yep, my bad, man. Please forgive me for forgetting names. But shout out to Early Gang Ruben, man, for lining this up. But man, Anthony Kilhoffer, let's go through, man. I got his discography pulled up. Let me see if I can close this ad. And we're frozen. DX, what's good, bro? All right, so while that's loading up, let me show you his IG, man. Couple really important things. So this man is the guy that discovered Travis Scott, but his career started way before that, and I'm gonna have him tell you the story. But Travis reached out to him through email because he saw that he worked with Kanye and Cudi, and this man has worked on every single Kanye album. Gotta ask him if he did something on Jesus is King, but literally since College Dropout, this man has been engineering, composing, and producing with Kanye, and man, the accolades go on. It's this guy's even got Michael Jackson credits. We were talking about that on the phone this morning or Friday morning. John Legend, Pusha T, Kanye, 2 Chainz, Khaled, Snoop, Common, Jay-Z, Cudi, like I said, Ross, Madonna, man, so many. Look at, I know you guys can see all these. The Roots, J-Lo, Christina Aguilera, T.I., Diddy. It's hating on this. You see, it's hating on us right here. Man, these lists just keep going. They keep going. So this webpage is hating on us. So But you guys see. Let's see if it finally opened up. Okay, yeah. These credits are just ridiculous. But yeah, man, the credits speak for themselves. Definitely go tap in with him on IG at Kilhoffer. He also he left some. He told us some links to put in the description. We got a link to his Instagram. We got a link to one of his newest releases with First Gen, and we also he put his personal email there. So he said, "Producers, send him samples." Now, I'll get on that shit early because you guys know how the producer grind community is. We blow when people come on the show, their Instagram gets blown up, their emails get blown up. So I don't know if he's prepared for how blown up his shit's about to be, and he might be like, "Damn, why did I put my email out there?" But his email is in the description, so reach out to him for sending samples and mixing inquiries. He also he mixes records, for artists, producers, and stuff like that, which is one thing I want to talk about too, which is kind of crazy. He worked on Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which is arguably Kanye's #1 album. His best album was voted the #1 album of the decade by Rolling Stone and Billboard. I don't know. I actually didn't know that. I just found that out. It's crazy. And what I was saying, so this guy is on Sound Better. We we talked about Sound Better before. Okay, he's in the Zoom too. I see Anthony, we're going to get you in just a second. So, you can reach out to this man, the man that discovered Travis Scott, plugged Travis, started manage. He was Travis's first manager, plugged him in with Kanye, and got him his agent deal with Kara Lewis. You can actually pay this man to mix your record and start a relationship, which is crazy. So I know not everyone is going to do that, but for the people that are serious, bro, this is crazy. And this goes back to when we were talking to the engineers, like we were talking to David Young and Kim. He's like, yo, one of the best ways to build connections with an engineer is just start paying me to mix your records, start paying me to do or paying someone to do your sessions. And this man has his email, and you can directly reach out to him to start doing that. So an amazing person to build and grow with, and start a working relationship with. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It kind of is common sense. It's not even a gem, but I guess you could call it a gem. It's just crazy. That's a crazy opportunity. But another clip, I just wanted to play a clip too from one of his past interviews where he talked about the differences between like kind of his generation. He came up in like that studio, like where there was a lot more working in studios versus now it's a lot more like low key working from home kind of setup. So just play this little clip before we bring him in.
But
yeah,
I don't know.
Tough. Yeah, it definitely has changed since your time, right?
Shout out to Kids Take Over.
Well, now there's no studios. I came up in the era of the studio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's how I made my connections. That's how I met executives. That's how I met artists.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a real studio. Now what's a studio? Somebody's bedroom. That's even how Travis made his connections, because we were always going to the studios. How do you think he met Wale and Meek Mill and got on that Dream Chasers, song like way early in Travis's career? That's because, you're going to studios and you're making those connections with real artists. You're not just bedroom producers smoking weed all day, put crap out, put another song out,
Yeah.
No one cares. It's like, the volume compared to quality in this era of music it's been marginalized, in my opinion.
I understand. I feel
and then he goes
there is Instagram, like you said, you have to go and meet these people and stuff, but isn't it easier now? Because now you can artists can message someone, hey man, I like your music.
Which was a good point, but I just thought it was interesting because there is a lot, just from being in Atlanta and going to studio sessions, there definitely is sessions that still go on. And man, there's a lot of value of being in that atmosphere, running into people and stuff like that versus, kind of just being like, well, I'm just going to, putting your guard up and be like, well, I'm just going to work from home. I'm just going to email and stuff like that. So I just thought that was interesting. I'm going to talk to him about it. But man, let's go ahead. Let's bring him into the call, man. It's that time.
For noodle cooking heat.
Yo, what's going on, man?
Well, good morning.
Anthony Kilhoffer, man, we appreciate you coming out on the morning show, man, being willing to talk to the community, tell your story, and shed some advice and some wisdom on the up and comers, man. I just want to make sure your audio's good. Can you give me a mic check real quick?
Check 1 2 1 2. Shy away.
This man came guitar in hand ready. A musical interview. But yeah, man, there's so much we got to talk about, man, but we gotta take it back from the beginning. We got to take it back from what'd you call it, noise rock, your first noise rock band, and just getting into music. Just tell us, man, how pre-internet days and all that stuff, how you got into music and what really drove everything.
Man, it was just I was moved by hair metal, MTV when I was a really young kid. Motley Crue and Poison, and I was just fed that. That was what the machine told me to like, Rolling Stone, MTV, that whole thing. That's how you found music in that era before the internet and websites and blogs and all the extra added.
So like MTV and stuff, they were actually breaking music, or were they still only playing artists that kind of had traction?
Well, I mean, but you didn't know they were breaking they were breaking artists but at the same time, they already had deals and everything. They had the traction, right?
Okay.
But you didn't know that as a consumer because you were just, fed this music, you didn't know.
Gotcha.
I mean, there was a little bit, then there was the zine culture, but that was only in major cities, right? So Black Flag and bands like that. That was like a zine culture. They weren't on MTV.
What is that, more like independence?
Yeah, 100%.
So like in the 80s and stuff, like, is it fair to say pretty much every popular artist was an industry plant, basically?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty
Okay.
much. I mean, you would have regional. It was more like the 90s. Well, I'm not that old. I'm the 80s. But, it was more like.
Well, no, I was saying because you said you grew up on that, like the 80s metal rock.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
I guess you're right. I guess that when I was really young, when I was like 11 and 12, is when the Motley Crue, what was it? Shout at the Devil record was like the first thing that really like galvanized me to like, man, that was when I had the dream to move to LA to become a rock star as soon as high school was done. Like before that, I never knew that existed.
Gotcha.
You never just, that was not an option. You didn't know that world was out there.
For sure, man. So, you're doing you have your dream, you're in a band. What was the next progression, and how did it progress to, hip hop music? And I know there was college in between there some point.
Yeah, I mean, after that, then I did get into, like you said, I was into like noise rock, kind of punk rock. Once I hit my 20s, that kind of era. I mean, it all just, I moved to Chicago after college and I started interning at a studio. And, I was just, when I started to see other people, other artists that were successful, right? Because I was playing in bands and I was making, our trio was making like $100 a show, right? So that was like no money. That was
right.
unsustainable.
$30 a piece.
Yeah, so that was unsustainable. So I was like, and then, at the same time, it was just a cultural revolution, right? Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders, NWA, like, in late 90s, that stuff really started to dominate American culture. So like every other, young adult in America, it was something that it was some new shit. It was like the new punk rock. So I, was drawn to that. But at the time, I was living in Southern Illinois. I couldn't fathom of how would you make music. I'd never seen a drum machine. I'd never seen an MPC. I'd never seen a Rhodes keyboard. I'd never seen a keyboard. This was pre-Guitar Center.
Right.
I think the first time I walked into Guitar Center was 98.
Oh, wow.
Because I was rare. I went to college. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, which is pretty rural in the first place. And then I went to college even more rural, like Southern Illinois University, which was like, 30 miles from Paducah, Kentucky, right? So we had a music store in town, but they didn't have MPCs. They didn't have drum machines. They had some used Stratocasters and like PA rentals, and used drum machine or used drums, and So it wasn't until I moved to Chicago, and that's when I got into the studio life. And then I saw the MPC for the first time, and I saw how that worked. Even when I first saw the MPC, I was more in a house music culture when I first moved to Chicago. So I saw people using the MPC 60 to make house beats, and that's where I learned you could swap out the samples. And then I kind of got the idea that, you know, how MIDI worked, and then, you know, you could just implement the style differently. And then I got on some, you know, I saw some hip hop sessions, and I saw how they use the MPC. And then that's when it all started to click, you know, and into the hip hop landscape for
Gotcha.
me.
So how did you get into like these studios? Were you paying for sessions? Were you interning? Like what was
Yeah,
that?
no, my brother-in-law was working for John Hughes, which I don't know if you know who John Hughes is, but he directed 16 Candles, Home Alone, a bunch of huge movies, and he was a
Okay.
Chicago director. And so my brother-in-law was his personal assistant, like director's assistant. And so his son, John Hughes Jr., is my age. John Hughes Jr. was in the studio in Chicago making a record. And my brother-in-law was like, you want to go meet John Jr. and see the studio? He's a cool guy, da, 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 you know. And I was in a band at the time in Chicago. So I went to the studio, and I just saw, like, it's the first time I saw a real studio, tape machines, drum machines. And I was like, man, you know, this is what I want to do. And then, you know, because at the time I was waiting tables and, you know, catering gigs and whatever. I was fresh out of college. I had no job. You know, I was trying to get a band together. And so, you know, this guy was like, you know, then my brother-in-law asked one of the guys at the studio if I could get a runner position. And so that's where I became like the runner / studio assistant, you know, that's where it all started. And that's where, you know, I got into the Chicago hip hop culture. And, you know, I tried to get into at the time, indie rock was huge in Chicago, but none of those studios would give me a job. You know, I couldn't even work for free at Itful was the big studio, or Gravity Studios where the Smashing Pumpkins were. I knew some other people that worked with Wilco. You know, I just couldn't get in at any of those facilities. So I ended up at this place called Chicago Tracks. And that's kind of where, you know, and that was a big, you know, they did a lot of house music and a lot of rap music. So that's kind of where I was introduced to that genre, into a place where people were actually making money, making music, right?
Okay.
You know? So it was like, you know, in the indie rock world, a lot of people made music, but no one was making money from it. You know what I mean? You might be able to go on a van tour, you know, like to New York and back, but you would come back in debt. Or, you know, if you had your 7 inches and you sold some 7 inches, you know, maybe you could make $200 in the evening, which would be enough to buy gas to the next show, you know, and things like that, you know. So I just saw it, you know, it was like I said earlier, when I saw, I don't know, R.Kelly and his team pull up at the studio in their Land Rovers, I was like, what the fuck? You know, I was like, man, what kind of music are you making? And
Right,
then,
right. You're like, this is different. I ain't used to this.
yeah, this is different. I just played like probably what I thought at the time was this Lounge Acts, was this like probably one of the biggest independent venues. You know, I played that, and like I said, we made like $100 between 3 people. I was like, this is not sustainable. This was a goal I had a year prior when I moved to the city previously. I obtained the goal. I was like, bro, there's no fucking money in this. This is, you know, it's like, how do you go from this to the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Right.
So then when I saw these guys, and then I became friends with Robert's music director, this guy Lafayette Carthon. And he then showed me Billboard Hot 100, talked about publishing, talked about master share, talked about, you know, how much money he was making, and you know, because he had just worked on I Believe I Could Fly, and like he was, you know, I was like, I befriended this man, Lafayette, just to, you know, I never had gained more knowledge about the music business and how it works from anyone until I met this individual, right? So whatever he wanted, I had a truck, and he wanted to build a studio. So I would go drive him around and buy gear and buy wood, whatever, for free. And then he would teach me how to run the MPC and how to, you know, do this, all the, you know, the intricate things that I didn't know.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you guys were exchanging value, essentially.
Exactly. And then from then, when, you know, when Robert, you know, fired his assistant, or no one wanted to work for Robert at the end of the day, is the thing, because, you know, he's kind of an asshole. Maybe that's why all the things have unfolded throughout the years. But, you know, so I took that position, you know, because I knew Lafayette and we had a good relationship, and I needed the fucking money because I was broke. You know, I was like starved to death and work for this psychopath. I mean, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But that's where I learned the DNA of making a song. You say what you want about R.Kelly, but at the time, the man had fucking massive hits.
Hitmaker.
Right after I Believe I Could Fly, he was writing for Michael Jackson, Jodeci, Maxwell, you know, everyone in that R&B world he was writing for. So I got to see how to craft songs. At the same time, I worked on the Double R record for like 2 years. So that was basically what I cut my teeth on, that double album, you know, which you probably recorded 45 songs for, which pared down to, I don't know how many made the double album. And then I did the Life soundtrack, you know, and this was all at a time where I didn't even know, you know, like how many notes are in a scale, or, you know, it was only from a technical aspect is how I looked at music 100%. It was not anything musically. I mean, I understood it, like I could hear it, right? And it made me feel good, and I felt emotion from the music, but it wasn't until years later that I really even learned the difference between C minor and C major. You know, because all the years that I was making noise rock, I'd never taken a guitar lesson. I'd never taken a music theory class. You know, there was no YouTube. You know, being in like rural bumblefuck Illinois, there was no music mentor to be like, you know, I learned the pentatonic blues scale from somebody, and that was about as far as I had the education of.
Gotcha. So what when you were in the band, what was your role? Were you a singer or?
Yeah, I sang and played guitar, but, you know,
by ear.
Yeah, by ear. And then even to the point where it was like, you know, I don't know if you've ever listened to Sonic Youth, but then that was my favorite group, right? Sonic Youth. And they had this thing where they would tune their guitars to alternate tunings. So it was not like EAB, it would be like GG, AA, CC, DD. So what you were playing were not 1, 3, 5 chords. It was just straight fucking noise craziness.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So looking back on it, I totally fucked myself up for playing music not even in the right key, you know, right in the right normal scale for the first 5 years of my life. Was a complete waste. You know, like looking back, if I would have taken one class and learned a bit of theory, I could have perhaps, that's why, you know, started the producing career before the engineering career. But I don't know. At the time, the world was a different place too, you know. Every studio or every session had engineers, and, you know, it wasn't just a producer driven world so much. You know, you needed a band. Like my whole goal was like, there were people like Terry Date and, you know, this guy Toby, or there was like other like big rock guys, like Tony Kaye is an example. This guy in Chicago, right? He did, you know, a bunch of those aggressive Chicago bands. What Pete Wentz's band, you know who I'm talking about? Pete Wentz.
No. It sounds familiar, I'm not gonna lie.
Wentz. Anyway, Fall Out Boy. He did Fall Out Boy.
Okay, I know that.
Well,
yeah.
But like in that era, there was always like the engineer guy that molded the band's sound, right? Like Korn would be nothing without, you know, Terry Date making the Korn sound, right? Terry also made the Limp Bizkit sound. You know, so like that was what I was also, even after the R.Kelly thing, I was trying to, you know, rotate back into that kind of engineering. And
so it was like engineer producing kind of, like hybrid kind of thing.
Yeah, like Michael Beinhorn would be another example of somebody that I was trying to follow in the footsteps of. He did like the Hole records, or Butch Vig, right? He did the Nirvana records, or, you know, that was what I was modeling my career after in the first 5, 10 years, not maybe 5, 7 years.
Gotcha. And did you carry that over when you started working on R&B and hip hop stuff?
I mean, a little bit, but the sonics are different, right? So, you know, that's what I found is things are very specific, genre specific, right? So a drum sound in a gospel record is nothing like a drum sound in a new metal record, right? They don't fucking want that, and you don't want. They're not. You can't change someone's mind, right?
Yeah.
Because they're listening to the latest Kurt Franklin record, and if you give them something that sounds like Limp Bizkit or Motley Crue, they're like, "What the fuck?" You know,
Right.
turn down the room mics. That's not,
Yeah.
you know, you have to know the genre specific of each
Especially back then, I feel like there was way more in a box, the genres versus like, you know,
sound. And
openness
it's
to blending.
also too just different kits, you know, and different material. You know what I mean? Like in a new metal record, no one's going to use a Hammond organ, right? But you have to know how to record a Hammond if you're making an R&B song. In the same way, you know, with drums, if you can't, you know, R&B songs have no room sounds in their kit, but rock groups have giant room sounds in the kit.
Gotcha, man. So man, I want to. Is there any like crazy, you know, struggle stories, borderline about to give up before you kind of started working on the R. Kelly camp?
Yeah, I mean, at the point where I was living in the attic of the studio.
Wow.
That's how I ended up with Rob, you know, working on that session because I had a car and it had broke down and I was broke and, you know, they didn't pay interns back in the day. Or at least in Chicago, they probably maybe don't even, you know, like runners or whatever they say now in LA.
Yeah.
You know, so I was basically living upstairs in the studio, and that's why I was trying to help Lafayette, you know, whatever I could to get in. And that's where, you know, because everyone was like, you know, if you had seen a picture of me at that era, you know, you would not have any idea. You would never think that I would be working on an R&B record. I don't know. I just had long hair.
I was gonna say long hair.
I was a long hair hippie weirdo freak and cut off jeans. You know what I mean? So, you know, yeah, I mean, the struggle was real, bro. I mean, you know, I rode the bus all the time back and forth after the car died. And then I stayed at some friend's house for a little while. You know, I mean, it was real. I think that's what, you know, made me, you know, to who I am to this day. You know, no one ever bought, you know, like, was always upset when I was that age because my father would never buy me any gear or, you know, all this shit. No one's ever bought me any gear in my entire life. You know, it's always been worked for. I think that's really what makes, you know, I don't know, it made me to this day. Because then later in life, when you had to, you know, when the struggles when I was with Kanye and we were constantly either going on the road or in the studio for 3 solid days or, you know, without sleep, I just, you know, you think about that time, and so you were happy to be there. Same thing, you know, even after the whole R. Kelly thing, I moved to Los Angeles by myself. You know, a whole giant city, whole, you know, entertainment business by myself with no one. I didn't, you know, now I see how it works. You know, kids go to college, they develop these relationships with people, and then they move in with their buddy who's got an internship here. You know, I moved in to Koreatown by myself, spent $3,000 on a Honda Accord, and you know that was it.
Just like whatever, like scraping up to get by. What was going through your mind? Like even maybe before you moved to LA, was there thoughts of like, yo, were you asking yourself like, am I throwing my life away? Am I going down the wrong path? Is this, or like, should I try to get a real job? Like, was there ever thoughts of that, or was it just like, no, this is it, this is what it is?
I think on my path, I didn't have an option. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I went to some shitty fucking college, right? I did bad at the shitty college, you know. So what was the option? I had exhausted the option. If I had an option to do anything other than wait tables, you know, I would have done that. You know, or it's like I was thinking about it earlier the other day. You know, I was 22 years old. I was washing dishes in Southern Illinois. Like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, why was I could have done better than that. like at that age, what the fuck was I doing washing dishes? You know, but I don't know. Maybe it's a mental capacity of like what you believe you are worthy of. I know it's a different era, I think now, because kids always think that they have this entrepreneurial thing. They've watched all the Gary Vee videos, they've seen the Kardashians, you know. Like even I know kids, you know, with the first gen thing that we talked to, they're like, no, I don't have a job, man. I know how to hustle. I'll just have an event here and I'll make $5,000 and then I don't have to work for so long and they'll do another event. No one thinks about getting a fucking job, right?
Right.
You know, when I moved to LA, a friend of mine, you know, who was working at the record plant, you know, when he wasn't doing his intern thing, he was parking cars. He was a valet, right? You know, people would do whatever it took just to fucking have money to pay the rent. And now it seems like, you know, I don't know how kids are living, but it's,
Like I'm gonna resell sneakers, Supreme, sell weed, whatever, you know,
It's a
whatever.
whole different thing of no one just wants to go get a job.
Yeah.
And then after the job, do what they want to do, you know,
which I feel like is a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing for the people that actually do have it in them to be entrepreneurs. It's way easier and there's way more access to information and motivation to do it. But then I feel like it's kind of, it falsely plants it into some people who just aren't built for that, that's the path. Oh, this is the path for me. Whereas like you might not be built to be that alpha leader position. You might be amazing at being that you know, the second in command position, you know what I mean, kind of thing. Which Gary Vee talks about too.
Yeah, not everyone's a boss. That's the thing. It's like you gotta, you know, there's what is in the line I like to say sometimes, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Yeah,
you know,
real shit.
Because I don't know, some people's you just got to be an Indian, you know. But I mean, like you said, I didn't have any other options. It wasn't like, you know, I had a history degree. I graduated with a history degree, so I could go be a teacher, you know. But it's like, you know, I can't even think of what I would have done for all these years.
Yeah,
you know, teaching. You know, that would have driven me crazy.
For sure, man. So you're moving to LA. What other stuff is going on? Are you strictly is the only thing really under your belt the stuff with R.Kelly, or did that lead to other things?
Before Rob, I had done like just like back in the day, if you were at the studio, you know, right? So you were on the list as the assistant, or if anyone called, you'd be the engineer. So even in Chicago, before I did the Rob sessions, I did Crucial Conflict, which was like probably one of the biggest bands out of groups. They're a rap group out of Chicago. They got a deal, right? So I had done their record, recorded their record. So I kind of learned how the MPC worked and, you know, more refined before I got to the R.Kelly role, you know, and then whatever. So when I was on the call at the studio, whoever came in, whether it was like a voiceover for a TV commercial, a mariachi band, a house thing, mix a house song for Funkmaster Farley or Vince Lawrence or whoever came in that day and wanted to pay the studio bill, because it was different in the day then, because you couldn't even, you know, the whole thing was, as a producer or an artist or somebody cool in the culture, you couldn't do this at home. You had to save your money, buy your 2-inch tape, get to the studio, and spend that 12 hours or that 6 hours. And then you wanted to walk out of there with your cassette tape, because CDs didn't even become popular until like 99. You couldn't even walk out of a studio with a CD until 99, 2000. So, you know, your whole thing was as an engineer to get hot, you know, whatever producer, whatever artist, whoever had money or wrangled money in to pay for this, you know, $800, $600, $1,000 for that day, wanted to walk out of there with their cassette, right? So then they could play to all their friends. They could send it out to get shows. They could send it to managers. They could send it to record companies. So whether, like I said, whether you're mixing a house song, whether you're mixing a hip hop song, whether you're doing a mariachi band, whether you're doing an indie rock band, that was all just like it was like a challenge almost. Like, okay, we're starting at noon. They're leaving the building by 7 o'clock. And if they don't walk out with a product that they're happy with, they're going to let you fucking know. Right. And it's going to be sometimes threatening and sometimes, you know, so like it got real as fuck, because people are paying a lot of their hard-earned money and they want to walk out with some shit that's fire. It's not like today where kids, you just go to the studio, you pull up your laptop, you make some beats and then smoke a bunch of weed and then leave, and they'll be like, oh yeah, whatever, maybe we'll use that beat, maybe we won't use that beat. You know, it was not like that. So you had to really be, you know, knowledgeable. Like there used to be shit like back in the day, like downtime was the thing, right? So if anything in the room stopped working, the client would lose their fucking mind and start the stopwatch, and then go down to the fucking boss of the studio and be like, oh man, your man couldn't fucking figure out what was wrong with track 9 for 30 minutes and I want my $50 back.
Right.
You know? But it's like, to get that, you know, just to be able to handle that and move sessions, you know, smoothly and make sure the clients are happy, and that's how you can build. Because if you fucked up one or two of those relationships in the culture of Chicago music scene, then no one's ever going to call you again. Your career's over, basically.
You were done, yeah. Word spread fast.
You know.
Which it was different before, because then you could bullshit your way in studios. People would bullshit, producers, engineers would lie and say, oh, they will work to this, that, and that, because you didn't have the internet. You couldn't check anyone's credits. You know what I mean? So if you talked a good game, you could talk yourself into the studio. You find some guy that's got money and some girl that wants to be a singer, and then you get the band together, and next thing you know, you got like $1,500 riding on this shit, and you don't really know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
In some cases, I've seen some people talk mad shit, get that producer fee from whatever, the guy who used to work in heating and air conditioning, and he's got a bunch of dough and he wants to be Suge Knight, because all these people came out of the woodwork after, people saw successful entrepreneurs like Suge and who was the guy from the South that made his own records? What was it? No Limit? What was that? No Limit?
Master P.
Yeah, Master P. So as soon as that happened, people just came out of the woodwork. Everyone thought they could be Master P, they could be Suge. So there are a lot of people taking risks. And then when you became the guy that they were running that risk with, it became serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, at the same time, that's how I learned a lot of the characteristics that I still use, and still, if you couldn't work under those conditions, I would have never been able to work under the conditions with Kanye when I met him 5 years later.
Which was in LA, man. Let's talk about, so you move out to LA. What's life like, man, in the beginning of that?
I mean, so I moved here in 2000, right? So, like I said, with the Master P and the Suge thing, the biggest, in 99, Alanis Morissette made this record called Jagged Little Pill. And they made it on ADATs, which was the precursor to the Pro Tools, right? So you could get ADAT, they look like VHS tapes, right?
Okay.
And you could have a home studio for about $5,000. So they made this Alanis Morissette record. This guy, Glenn Ballard, and her made this record at his house or some shit. This was like the first studio, not made in a studio record, went on to sell like 15 million copies.
Shit.
Everybody in LA was trying to find the new Alanis Morissette, right? Every coffee shop, it was a different culture, right? It was like, there was this place on Highland Grounds, right? Like Wednesday, Thursday, songwriter night. So everyone was down there with their guitar and the piano, and they'd play their songs. There'd be all these 30-year-old producer guys trying to find the next Alanis, or, singer-songwriter guy, whether it be like Jeff Buckley or, because he was also popular at the time. So that was one avenue. Everyone was trying to make that hustle, right? Because then that seemed like a no-brainer. You spend your $5,000 on a Mackie mixer and the ADATs, and you can, compete with the major record companies. So it was that, and then it was like, new metal was really big at the time. Limp Bizkit, like I said, Korn, all that kind of stuff. Linkin Park had just made their first record, I think, in like 2002 or something. And that was the landscape. And then West Coast rap, East Coast rap, it was that kind of hip hop landscape.
For sure. And what were some of the first opportunities that you ran into out there?
So when I first got to LA, I got a job as an assistant at Paramount Recording Studios.
Okay, so that's big.
Yeah, I mean, no, not Paramount the movie studio, Paramount Recording Studio.
Yeah.
On Santa Monica, which is pretty good though. I was happy with it. I was really trying to get on at the record plant, but they didn't take me right away, and I needed cash immediately. So I just, Adam and Mike, to this day, I still fuck with Adam and Mike big time. They're the owners of Paramount. I still, because they give good deals on rates. And it's like the studio right before you hit the Chalice record plant thing, like, right? Right before, it's your first out of the bedroom kind of studio. And anyways, so I was there, and it was the same thing like I was familiar with in Chicago. I was, just doing whatever. I was on call, whatever sessions they wanted, for my, I think it was like $35 an hour. I was, recording anyone.
That's good money.
Yeah, whoever it was. I remember one of my first sessions was this little Korean kid and his mom, and his grandma came, and I was recording him singing karaoke to Celine Dion songs. And I was like, oh, this is how I came to LA. I came, my dream right here. And I was like, well, it can only go up from here. So, you know, I did that for a while. Who else over there? I mean, I just kind of saw the protocol of an LA session, which is a bit different protocol than the Chicago sessions. They're way more professional, way more on point. The engineers are way more technical. Lamont Dozier I met over there. I saw like first full LA tracking sessions I saw kind of at Paramount. Warren Campbell I saw over there. It was like one of the first sessions that I was on. Shep Crawford. R&B was still big in the early 2000s. Who Montel Jordan, Kurt Franklin, and since I knew how to operate in those, I would request to be a part of those. And
Okay.
you know, so then that kind of started, and then maybe 3 months into that is when I kind of got the record plant call again for the second time, and then convinced them to give me a position as an assistant. And then, you know, from there, I just saw that's when I got more into the new metal thing. That's where I worked for Limp Bizkit for a little while. I met Terry Date. We did like Soulfly, a couple like Roadrunner record albums. I assisted on like Madonna's. You know, I took the step back to go to the record plant because even though I could engineer, I had no clients in LA. So you know what I mean? And the talent pool in LA was so much greater than the skill set that I had. I took the step back. So I was making less money. I was waiting on people. I was getting no respect. But at the same time, you know, while I was at the record plant in the 4 years that I just sat on the couch with my mouth shut and patched in gear for Tony Maserati, I met and watched,
To OG.
you know, Ray Charles,
Yeah.
Luis Miguel. No, I assisted on a No Doubt record. You know, so I saw the whole making of what was it like Rocksteady. You know, who else? I did orchestra sessions. I assisted for Ron Fair, who was the president of A&M Geffen for 2 years. Made Vanessa Carlton's record, Pussycat Doll album. You know, I met Pharrell. I engineered for the Black Eyed Peas, Ella Funk, Monkey Business, Christina Aguilera. I mean, everyone, Justin Timberlake, everyone in the early 2000s was, I mean, still to this day, a lot of people go to the record plant, you know, not as much, but it's like, if you're a megastar, you really don't want to work at your house.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you do, but you want to get the fuck out because you want to have guests over, you know, and then you want to just be able to trash the place and leave. You know, at your house, you know, I mean, you know, if you have a lot of dough, you can have, you know, you have a staff. It's just not the same to work at home. You know, there's that bit of service that the studio provides and anonymity, you know.
100%. So, one question too: while you were meeting these people and stuff like that, were you trying to form relationships, or were you kind of just like, no, I'm just being the assistant, I'm just doing my job, and it is what it is, kind of thing?
I mean, I was not as proactive as I should have been looking back on it. You know, I was a little too quiet. I mean, I was trying to, you know, just try to get the name game and to figure all out, like, you know, I wasn't really approaching the artist as much, but like the A&R, I was building relationships with the A&Rs.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I saw that's where the key is, the A&R administration people. In my mind, that's what I thought it was. You know, and, you know, maybe that was backwards in a bit because, you know, it's all about the artist. The artist is going to be the one that chooses if they want you to work for them or not, you know, but at the same time, artist careers come and go, and the people behind the scenes are going to build the next, you know, artist, right? So if you're in with them, when they find that next, you know, that, you know, you can be the go-to.
Yeah, like the deep state of the music industry.
Exactly. So you keep, you know, because I saw other guys that I would know that worked at the record plant, and the thing to work at the record plant, you would want to find a producer, and then they would take you with them, right?
Okay.
But if you went off with a producer too soon and their career floundered, then you would flounder, and then you would lose being around all these people every day. So you really needed to pick wisely on who you were going to leave with, because you pick yourself out of that pool, it better be good.
It might not be so easy to get back in. I get it. So man, so you're doing your thing, and I know you know, there was a Kanye session that kind of sparked, you know, a whole new era of your careers. Is that fair to say that?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, for sure. Because I mean, from that, it wasn't even, you know, it was the session, but then he took me. I was front house for his first college dropout tour, and I think
Okay.
that's what really solidified, you know, our relationship, right? And it was like, you know, it was just more of a bonding experience than with the whole, you know, it's the whole team. That's when GLC, Don C, you know, Ivan, we're all, it's like all the core people kind of went out on that first tour,
Okay.
you know, and that's what really kind of made the bonds, in my opinion.
By front house, you were like working on live audio stuff. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
exactly. I
Okay.
was my house mixer. And by default, I was the tour manager kind of, because
Wow.
none of them had ever been on tour before. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like the one guy, you know, that kind of knew, you know, like the monitors are ran off the side there, right? So, you know, you need to talk to this person. You know, we didn't have a monitor engineer, but, you know, it was just, they had never done it, you know.
So taking a few steps back, so I remember in your interview, I think it was forgive me, We Are the Kids or something like that.
The kids take over.
Yeah, Kids Take Over. My bad, my bad. Yeah, shout out to them. That was they definitely he did a dope interview. But you were saying that, so you know, Kanye came into Record Plant, and you know, you were just working. But then one day he basically came in and he was like, "Hey, I just got a you know a record deal. Let's work," kind of thing. Can you explain how that kind of went down?
Hey man, he just I mean, which one? So it's just like I said before. I was just on the list. Anybody needs an engineer, you just call, right? So that was the first. I did that, and I think it was a Marsha Ambrose session when he was producing. He was just producing, and then I think we did a couple more. We did like a Mariah Carey session and maybe something else, just as him as a producer. And then I don't even know if he requested me or not when he came back in when he got the deal. You know, he just showed up at the record plant, and you know, I was there. I don't know if he asked for me specifically or
Okay.
just, you know, the studio is just to build the relationships. I could tell Rose Mann, the woman who ran the record plant, recognized Kanye's talent. So basically, whatever they're trying to do is just like make the client. If the producer comes, make it the best experience for that person as humanly possible, so they keep coming back. Right?
I get it.
They
Mhm.
want the money. They want, you know, there's different options in the studio world. They want you to stay there and be happy in their environment. So, you know, I think that's how. So Rose just kept putting me with him. When he came in, he just defaultly became my client. You know, as a defaultly could have became Junior Shizeki's client, who was another engineer, Franny Graham's client, who was another engineer at the time.
So it's kind of luck of the draw. I get it. I get it.
Luck of the draw. And then, but I think though, once I showed him, because he showed up, he had his MPC in a suitcase and an ASR 10 in a suitcase. And I remember it was like a Quentin Tarantino moment. He was like, I brought my gear, and he opens the suitcase. You know how like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, there's my gear. And I look at it and I was like, oh, okay. It's an MPC and a Roland VS80, you know, which was like a 16 track recording device. And but then he had already done his whole album in the MPC and the Roland VS880. So then I figured, you know, I knew how to sync that to Pro Tools. So I dumped those 8 tracks of MPC and 8 tracks of Roland, right, into the Pro Tools. Now we have 48 tracks, 64 tracks of Pro Tools. You know, so then we could build on that. You know, so then he got in the booth and started recutting his vocals, and then he started calling musicians, and then we would slowly just replay all the music of all his productions.
Mm.
I think we had like 14 days of that first initial run, you know, and that was the foundation, you know, of the college dropout. And that's, you know, just I built that trust, you know.
Yeah. And then so he asked you to, you know, come on board, and I know you talked about a couple minutes ago, you were saying how you got to pick and you got to be smart about who you decide to leave with. So I'm assuming you did decide, you're like, I believe in Kanye. You decided to, you know, step out and take that risk, and you know, the rest kind of became history. Man, let's talk about, you know, some of the work on these albums, cuz I feel like, you know, the style of the records that you've worked on, you know, with Kanye and stuff, they kind of, you know, call them quote unquote big records versus like, you know, And that, you know, those kind of records I feel like do still happen, but a lot of the stuff that we're seeing today is, you know, producer makes a beat on his laptop, sends it to the artist cuts the vocals, maybe may or may not send the track outs, engineer may or may not mix the, you know, the beat, and then the song's done. Versus what you kind of just explained, like Kanye kind of brought in, and I've heard you talk about this on the interview too, like Kanye brings in like the raw idea, the skeleton, and then you start calling in Mike Dean and musicians and people like that, and yourself, you know, to come and compose and add flavor and add stuff to these records, man. I just want to know, like, what's the difference, like, in mindset between those kind of records versus the other ones I kind of explained, like the more simpler.
Well, I think it's become a cultural thing, right? I think that people, they don't want to. I don't know if they don't want to work. They oftentimes think the first idea, that's the idea. Like last year, I did an album with the artist, and you know, young artist, and we on like maybe 3 of the songs we really focused on, and we did that same thing. He added more music to it, and I saw him like, you know, a couple months later, and he was like, you know, those ones we worked on even harder, they do sound better. You know, because some he wouldn't touch, some he was just like, mix it. You know, I'm like, well, we're not gonna add any production. No, that's the record. Just mix it. And I'm like, okay, you know. But the ones that we spent more time on had a little bit more elaborate production, and they did, you know, they sounded better. They felt better. I think it's like back in, you know, previous culture, you would write a song, right? And it would just be a skeleton. It would be, you know, on a piano or guitar, and there'd be lyrics. And then you would just trace over it, and you would add production. I think now, I don't know, it's just interesting. I don't know what it is. I mean, I think people can still play those instruments, and they're still talented, but I don't know what it is. If it's the weed or if it's like, you just got to keep turning it. It's a little bit different because artists have to continually make product now, a lot more perhaps. Like if you would look in 2004, think how many songs does an artist release in 1 year compared to how many songs a relevant artist released in 2019. I would have to say, like, if you counted the songs Travis Scott released in 2019 and the songs that Kanye released in 2004, just by basic numbers, I bet Travis's numbers are doubled, you know. And so I'm not saying that's good or bad, but the quality of the production, I don't think, is put in the time and thought process in the production is not the same in time and thought process that it's put on, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
For sure.
So I don't know what it is, because, and I think I've even known that if you try to spend too much time and try to work on things, people will be condescending and be like, what, you know, why are you wasting our time? This is good. You know, so you're not, you know, I don't know. And I think maybe it's just what culture is acceptable. It's like trash is acceptable in America right now. You know, it's like, it is. You know, I listened to New Music Friday and Popstar Rising, you know, this weekend, and I was kind of unimpressed. You know, I think, like, I understand minimalism, you know, and I get it's cool, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm not hating, but I just don't think that they're pushing boundaries. I don't think culture is pushing boundaries. I think everyone's too busy. Even, you know, you go to a session, people are playing beats, somebody's writing a verse, the whole room's going through fucking Instagram on their telephone. It's like no one's even paying attention. Like no one is like, oh, I could do this better, or, you know, what if we changed, you know, the last bar, you know, the last half of the verse to a different flow, or the other second half of the hook's gonna have a different melody. Nobody gives a fuck. They're just like this the whole time.
Yeah, that's real shit. That's real shit, man.
Yeah. So it's like, what are you really doing? You're just trying to do it for the bitches and the money. That's it. It's like no one is trying to make good music. Everyone's just trying to do it for, like, you know, try to be rich and famous, in my opinion. And I think it's, you know, it's interesting. No one cares. No one even knows music anymore, really. You know, and I don't know. Oftentimes I feel like, you know, everyone is just like, oh no, you're old, you don't know what this is cool, this is youth culture, this is da 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 da. But I mean, and I can respect that, but at the same time, it's like you kind of see what's taking on. Like, there's a reason that like EDM artists are headlining, festivals, and that like kids are. It's a whole different way of thinking. These shows like EDM shows, the light shows, and the crazy sounds. That is what keeps people's attention right now.
Yeah.
Because there's so much in everyone's face. Instagram, Twitter, all these things that it's hard to even go and experience something that's not like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need that stimulation. The human brain in 2020 needs that stimulation, or you're just like.
And I think to add to your point about, really pushing the boundary and being more about the music, like if you look at like Billie Eilish and Phineas, like I think there's a reason they took home, what was it, 5 or 6 Grammys this past, you know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Just, I know that's a totally different genre, but I think you can listen to the production quality, and I'm with you, bro. I'm not taking away anything from the music of today, because, and what I mean, like the modern trap stuff, because there's definitely still great records that come out, but I think it's like you said, it's more of a quantity, and there's some diamonds in the rough that happen to pop out, every so often. But yeah, man, I lost my train of thought on a question about working on those big records. Oh. Yeah, let's get a guitar intermission going. So man, so let's just take it back. Let's talk about, working on what was it, during graduation is when you also got the Michael Jackson credit?
Yeah, right after graduation.
Right after graduation. So talk about the transition from, now you're on Kanye's 3rd album, Graduation, you guys are locked in, you guys have your formula down, you're doing your thing, and then, also too, to talk about the EDM thing, Kanye really pushed the boundaries by, bringing the EDM elements and stuff into Graduation, and more synth-based stuff. But just talk about that, like the progression to the Michael Jackson credit, and after that.
The Michael Jackson thing was just right at the end. He was doing his 25th anniversary, so he reached out. Michael's the quintessential kind of, he reaches out to whoever, or he did reach out to whoever's hot in the business at the time to make his next product. Same thing like how Madonna moves, or how, just the matrix of the music business, how you make a pop star. You go to every hot producer and you just, have them make your record. So anyways, he reached out to Kanye right after graduation, because it was popping, it was all over the charts. And, Kanye was not really that interested, because he was getting ready to do the glow in the dark live European tour. He had a bunch of singles, he was doing press.
Yeah, he's lit.
So, we get to the studio, they send us the tape of Beat It, like they're actually digitized. I think they sent it to us in the Pro Tools file. Jeff Basker was there, he was playing all the keys, and Kanye just wasn't interested, you know what I mean? He was like, let's just order lunch, watch some TV, and
got a mic record, and Kanye's like, yeah.
So he'd just like literally left, he'd like leave, and me and Jeff were just there, man, and we'd be like, man, we'd like, this is Michael Jackson, but like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, as when we were kids, like he was God,
Right.
So we just kept working on it, and we both wanted the check, So we're like, we spent 2 days on it, or I think they booked the studio for 3 days. I think the first day we did nothing. The second day we kind of did nothing, and they kind of left. So me and Jeff on the second day really went in, and we're like, okay, bro, we're going to do this. And the third day he comes in and we show it to him. He's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Do this, and boom, and then I think he left and did some MTV award show, and we sent it to him. And he's like, okay, great. And then his, Michael's attorney would call us, and, just, some little comments, this, that, and this, and, he likes this, turn this up, Yeah, that was the Michael Jackson thing. It was pretty amazing to me. And it was like one of the first times where, Kanye left me and Jeff alone. Like, we had the record plant for, like it was 7 days at the end of the thing, like the kids had taken over the asylum, We had the full food budget, studio, whatever gear we wanted, rentals. It's amazing.
You're living your dream at this point. You know,
Yeah,
this
exactly. Living the dream.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and the success. You know, I kind of, at this point, learned the method of how to craft a song. Like, that was at the point where it would, I was the last person to touch a song before it made it to the interweb. Which I like to, before it would be like, oh, I would record and then you'd have to send it off to somebody to master or mix and master. And now I was at the point where I was producing, mixing, and I don't even know who mastered that. So
Nice. Would you say it's easier or harder to wear those multiple hats on a record? Because I've heard some people be like, man, if I mix it or if I track it, I don't want to mix it because my ear, like, I can't catch it, or vice versa and stuff like that.
no, I mean, it doesn't bother me at all, because all the years that I spent recording people and then listening to the mix back, so I kind of reverse engineered mixing. You know what I mean? Because I thought when I would hear mixes back, like I'll never forget, like the first mix that I got really shit on. I was doing this Limp Bizkit recording for this Bono thing, right? Some profit, things. We're saving something with Bono. And, I worked on the song for like a week. We recorded it, I mixed it, they liked it. And then their manager's like, "Nah, we got to send it to Andy Wallace." Andy Wallace is he mixed Nevermind. Andy's like a legendary guy. Mm. I'm like, fuck that. Now I mix this. There's no way he's going to sound better than me. So anyways, they come to the studio a day later. Back in the day, we'd hook up this thing called ISDN. So the mixer, Andy was in New York, right? So this is before the internet. So the mix was played through this ISDN box, which was a CAD 5, like basically played through the internet through this box. So he would have an ISDN box in New York. We'd have one in LA. Okay. So the artist could then listen to the mix, make comments, and the mixer would change the mix in real time.
So it's like a musical fax machine kind of thing.
Exactly, like a musical fax machine.
That's crazy. I never even heard of that.
Yeah. I mean, it still works. Like I use it, ISDN last week to record a guy here in my studio in LA, but the client was in Chicago. It's the same kind of thing, right? So then they can hear, it's a faster, I don't know how the technical aspects, but they dither down the internet for communications like this. But if you pay the extra money, you get the full bandwidth. And then in real time, you can, without latency almost even,
wow,
record anywhere in the world. It's just like they do with television broadcasts, you know what I mean? But anyways, so I heard this.
That's interesting, man. Just telling me something for sure.
Yeah. I heard this mix come back from Andy Wallace, and it just shit all over my mix. And I was just like, they kind of laughed at me. They were like, "Man, you did a good job. We thought you did a good job, but this is what it should sound like." Mm. And that's, and it's the same thing, like later in life, when I was working on the Black Eyed Peas records, right? Or even before, I tried to mix an R.Kelly song on the R record, and then they liked it for a couple of days, and they're like, "No, we should send it to Tony Maserati," because at the time he had just done Biggie Smalls, and Maserati was doing a bunch of Puff Daddy stuff, so he was like the guy to go to. And Tony's still around doing big records, but when they got it back from Tony, I was just like, fuck, I could just see where, personally, I feel like I could see where my level was and what the professional level was. So, I think like the vocals were over compressed. It was too bright. There was like mixing, just stylistic choices that I made that I thought were good, but what real big time mixers were doing was something completely different. And they gave that aesthetic to the song that sounded like it should be on the radio, where my aesthetic did not sound like everything else on the radio. Mm. I would make the analogy back in the day. It's like, it doesn't sound like a Christina Aguilera song. Not that it needs to sound like a Christina Aguilera song, but if you're on Kiss FM, right, and your client is in the rotation between Christina Aguilera and Bruno Mars and the Black Eyed Peas, and you can't come out sounding like, Joe Blow.
I get it.
It's like, fit. Yeah, it's got to fit. You don't show up at the Met Ball in dirty pair of denim jeans and a hoodie. It's like, so, but that's where I learned. Even to this day, like I listen to some new what is it, marshmallow mixes, right? Some marshmallow songs, and I feel like, man, everyone in the EDM world uses the OTT compressor all to fucking hell and gone, even on like guitars. Like I feel like that shit's over compressed, but since everyone in that genre is doing that, if you don't do that, then you don't sound like you're fitting that genre.
I get it, man. Makes sense. So what? So okay. So that kind of goes back to like how you're saying. Well, I was gonna say when we were talking about how everything's kind of like there's no real push and things have kind of like I feel like music's kind of in a pocket right now and it's kind of been in a few years. You know what I mean? So what do you think? What do you think it takes to really like? I mean, naturally, there's gonna be a next. But what do you think? What are your just thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know what the next is. Somebody asked me this the other day. Like, I said when I started my career, it was, I was I wanted to really be hot on Pro Tools because I had, that was like the new thing, right? So what is the new thing now? It's like it's hard. Is it going to go back to youth culture going to go back to real instruments and like really playing? I don't know. Maybe that we're seeing that through how everyone is more aware of like the social injustices and caring for the planet and caring for each other. So maybe the music is going to be less exploitive, and more talent driven. That could be an option. Like young people could really play instruments instead of just do everything on the computer. But it's hard. It's like we've, as humans and as a culture, have went down such a long road to this point. It's hard to say what the next. I mean, to me, it kind of seems like we've done it all. There's only so many notes. There's only so many chord progressions. It's like basically the 90s Nirvana and everything, and that whole indie rock scene was like it was like the Beatles with distortion pedals, right? So they were just rebirthing the Beatles, in my opinion. In a lot of ways it's still the same thing. They're going to play E minor, A minor, and B in a way, and C and D and G, right? So like, what are you going to do? At the same time now, I don't know. It's just, I think it stems from American culture. You know what I mean? I think what you're learning, it's just like the opioid crisis and methamphetamines and pornography and all this shit is just, it's the same thing you're getting in music, right? So what is that going to become? What is the future? I heard a quote the other day, we don't know what weapons will be used in World War III, but World War IV will be fought with sticks. Okay, so what is?
The World War III is going to wipe it out. You're saying?
Yeah. So what is? So maybe that's the same thing with music. John Lennon said, "Does art imitate life, or does life imitate art?" So what? What are the kids giving back? What the kids are giving back is what they see and what they're taking in. So
that's pretty deep.
It'll have to see. Who knows what's going to happen with the new election and the pandemic and what. I mean, it's unprecedented. I can't, like, I was just thinking I was watching, the Jay-Z documentary the other day, and he was rehearsing for a tour, right? He showed some of the Watch the Throne tour. I was like, man, like, can you, like, what if for the next 5 years there was no arena shows, right? And what is going to happen to music? What is going to happen? Because you're not going to have because the thing is if people don't see artists in these godlike personas, maybe they'll lose their reason to follow these people, right? Because Instagram influencers and all these things, like, they're cool. I'm not hating on them. They got their thing, but they can't pack a stadium in Cleveland on a Wednesday with 20,000 people. They can't do it, right? So you know, and then so if they don't have that if young people don't have that to inspire to, then what are they gonna look for inspiration?
Yeah, man, this conversation gets deeper and deeper for sure. Nah, that's crazy to think about. You know what I mean? And I definitely appreciate your input on that. Um,
That's just how I think about music, though, because I think about, you know, when I think about trap music, it's like when you drive down the road and you see Starbucks, Burger King, McDonald's, Starbucks, Burger King, McDonald's. That's how I feel about trap music. You know, it's like people are giving out what they're taking in.
mm,
You know, so minimalism, simplicity, and everything being the same is everything that everyone in America has seen. If you go to Arkansas, you're going to see Starbucks and Taco Bell and Burger King. You go to New York, you're going to see Starbucks, Taco Bell, and Burger King. You know, you go to Alabama, you're going to see Starbucks, Taco Bell, and Burger King.
right.
So musically, what are you giving back? Starbucks, Taco Bell, and Burger King.
I get it. I get it. And I think even globally, it's kind of, you know, with everyone, you know, hip hop and trap scenes emerging in, you know, every country. You know, there's the slight differences, you know, and things that they add to it. You know, for instance, like UK drill. Man, like we've had like guys from India come on and show us some stuff, and you know, you can, you know, they do it in their own way, but it's still essentially, you know, especially production wise, it's still essentially the same thing. Um, but yeah, man. So on a different note, man, let's talk about Dark Twisted Fantasy, man, and what that, you know, was like working on that project.
I mean, it was wild. At the same Because at the same time I had a child, right? Like
Mm,
my daughter was born in April 3rd, and you know we started that in January. You know what I mean? So that was like it was wild. It's just a wild time in my life because at the same time I was doing the tour stuff with Kanye still. I wasn't doing front house, but I was, you know, we had all the show in Pro Tools, and I was running the auto tune. So we're touring, doing spot dates, having a child, living in Hawaii for 9 months. You know, it was fucking crazy. And you know, so having a child, I was working super extra triple hard because, you know, there's so many people there to compete with. You know, Andrew Dawson, Mike Dean. You know, we met Noah towards the end, Goldstein. So it's like to have them, you know, to get a mix on the record, to keep production on the record. You know, it was a fight. You know, and you had to come with your best at all times. I call it musical survivor. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't, you know, come with your best A game every day, then you're shipped off the island. You know, and it was interesting. To work constantly for 3 months solid every day, 12 hours a day, if not 14. You know, because we had 12-hour shifts where Andrew Dawson would work from noon to 12 p.m. and I would work from 12 p.m. to noon. You know, but I would come in at 10, maybe some, you know, so that then I knew I was, you know, I get there at like 10, 11 p.m. So I kind of knew where, you know, where everyone was staying. So, you know, Sahai would be in the back with Rick Ross, and there, you know, I got to get those files, and, you know, Mike would be upstairs, and, you know, Warren Campbell would be in this other room. You know, I was like the whole thing as the engineer would be to go through, specifically me and Andrew would be to go through and get everyone's, what they did to the, whatever, you know, everyone's kind of given a task when you got to the island. You come in, you would sit with Kanye, and he brought you there for a reason. So he'd play you the songs of the state they were in. He would ask you what you wanted to work on. Then he'd be like, okay, Kilhoffer, give them the files for do. And then they would go in another room and they would spend their afternoon working on them. Then you'd have to go back, get their files, put them into the song, because since you gave them the song, there's probably been a new verse added or a new arrangement. So you'd have to then chop that shit in, you know. And then I picked the nighttime because then every time it just gave me more personal time with Kanye, because he was sleeping at the studio, but he only slept like 4 hours. So, you know, by 3 a.m, everyone had gone home. 2 a.m, everyone had gone home or to the hotel to take a rest. And then since I only got there at 12, you know, I was, you know, ready to go. So, you know, he'd probably stay up till 4. He'd go to sleep from like 4 to 7. And between 4 to 7 a.m., I would get all the parts from the other artists. put them in the songs. I would try to do a little production, a little mix. And then when he woke up at 6, you know, that was his time to really like, that's when he would usually go in and like focus on raps, because there would be no one there, you know, there, all the songs would have new production on it. He could, you know, just really get in the booth and really, you know, put out his ideas without, you know, being disturbed, people coming in, interrupting, you know, that. I mean, that's where the runaway outro came from, because he just woke up, this guy got an idea, get in the booth, boom, 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 you know, does his thing. I throw on the guitar rig, which made that sound, and the outro thing, and there you go. I mean, it's just hard. It's hard sometimes to create with lots of people around, you know. So it was a good thing to have all these people coming and going, but at the same time, it was good to wake up in the morning and just knock that shit out.
Yeah.
Which I find, you know, even to this day, I fuck with the mornings big time.
It sounds like there was just a lot of like throwing shit against the wall, trying ideas, and you know, if it works, it works. Now, one thing I can say that I feel like is why a lot of people kind of like, they cut the record, they're like, yeah, we're done with it. Either we fuck with it and we want to release it, or we just move on and do another song. Because I've noticed this as well. Like working on music, I get fatigued so quick where it's like, I'm over this song. I don't even want to hear it no more. I don't even like it. I don't really have any like love for it as much as like when it's like fresh, a new idea. Has there ever been any of that working on like these bigger records, whether it's with you or just in general with the team?
I mean, I don't know. Not so much. I think because once the melody, I think, and too, as musicians, once the melody's in there, it can be changed. You know what I mean? Whether the melody's played with, you know, a keyboard, a guitar, a bass, or you take that same melody that's in the same key as a different sample and you put that sample in there. I think it's like just releases a new perspective on things. And I think it's harder now because production is so much slimmer, right? And it's oftentimes not so musically related. It's not like a 2-5-1 chord progression or a 1-3-5. It's just like bleep, 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 or like some weird noise pad. So how are you going to swap that out? You can't, you know, really change that to make it better or embellish and build upon it, because the context of the song is not that deep, you know. So how can you keep rebuilding and recreating if you're always staying so minimal?
I get it. So man, we've talked so much about, you know, your work with Kanye, and I definitely don't, I'm not trying to put your career in a box, like in the Kanye box, because I know your credits span crazily, man. What are would you say are like your favorite record, or maybe your 1, 2, or 3 favorite records that you've ever, you know, been a part of?
I mean, Graduation, I think, you know, personally was bigger to me than Dark Twisted Fantasy. I mean, I saw the impact and I saw kind of the greatness, but, you know, it was just, I think Graduation was way more profound in the landscape of popular culture. Like hip hop heads love Dark Twisted Fantasy, and I guess popular culture did take that in a bit more. But like, you know, I was living in Hollywood. This is how I always judge success: is, you know, when a new record came out, you could just walk around Hollywood and hear it in everyone's car, right? You would hear, you know, Stronger or Can't Tell Me Nothing or Homecoming, right? It was just, you would hear it around the city, right? It's not so, I didn't hear, I mean, I heard Runaway a little bit. And I think culture shifted a little bit at that point because it wasn't such a CD driven world.
Yeah.
By the time Dark Twisted came out, I mean, I guess.
We were that Piff driven, live mixtape driven. And...
Yeah. I mean, so, I mean, that was, and I think I had a bit more of a hand in Graduation. I don't know. Personally, I felt that one. I mean, the Upper Echelon, or what was the one I did with Travis, his first mixtape, Alfaro, was special because that was like, I mean, that was just pieced together by, you know, stealing studio time from whoever or getting in the studio when, you know, we said we were going to work on somebody else's project, but actually do Travis's project, or Let's see what else. I mean, even like I said, the Rock Steady album that I did with No Doubt, which I, assisted and engineered on, just to see how that built, how you build in that capacity with all live performers and a sprinkle of, less production, I mean, the fundamental though was like, not necessarily an album, but the years I spent with Ron Fair, because I watched him. He built the Black Eyed Peas career. He signed Keisha Cole. He did Thousand Miles, Vanessa Carlton, and then I watched him just A&M for 2 years, build the Pussycat Dolls. Like I do exactly what Ron does, and to this day. It's like you get the idea from the producer. You just kind of retool it, you make it better, and you shine it up, dust it off, and try to make the giantest pop record out of the inception of a great idea. I'm not saying that the producers don't come with great ideas in the first place, but just to build it, to make it sound like it should be on Kiss FM, a worldwide smash hit. So I don't know. I mean, one of my favorite records, I did a record with this artist named Kobe. Some things you do that you put your heart and soul into, and they don't become cultural, giant masterpieces that, you feel a way about them. But, the rest of the world. I also did a record with the guy, John Butler, Australian singer, songwriter guy from the John Butler Trio. And, that was very satisfying to, it's like what you put out into the world to me is very important, right? So the John Butler message was very powerful in my opinion, so I don't know, it just feels good. It feels good to put out positive music in a shitty world. So it doesn't always have to be something that is culturally moving to me, or I'm going to get giant accolades and talk about it for like the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just things where you have a great experience with that individual, and they're kind to you, and you have this connection, and you put out music that is going to inspire people to do great things and to push themselves as producers and musicians and just humans.
Most definitely, man. So, man, we got to talk about, which I think our audience, mostly knows you for. At least that's what it seemed like when I, put out the message to them through text, because I, connected to them through this community platform, which I think I was telling you about. And, when I let them know yesterday, like, yo, tomorrow morning, we got Anthony Kilhoffer on the show, like, immediately got text back, like, yo, that's the dude that discovered Travis, man. He discovered Travis. That's, he built Travis's career. So, man, let's talk about it. And I know it all started from an email in your inbox.
Yeah, I mean, Travis was just, he read credits back in the day. There were credits, and I had a lot of credits, and so he was a big Kanye fan, a big Cudi fan. So he saw that I was on the Cudi records and I was on the Kanye records, and he just reached out. I think it was actually his friend Dozy was like the guy who really pursued me. But yeah, I mean, he just kept sending me music, and I'd kind of, I could tell a lot of people send me music, but I could tell with Travis's artwork, in your Gmail, you have that photo that comes with your Gmail.
Yeah.
And he had this like burnt up American flag. Like just one side of it was like crispy and it was yellow. And before I even heard the music, I was like, man, that's some cool art, because you can tell like right away if some whack ass shit from the artwork in the Gmail that the music is probably going to be trash. So, I mean, he was young at the time. This is like 2011. So, he'd send me a song. What do you think? Can you mix it? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm busy. We just stayed in touch for a while. And, then his buddy, Tony Loney, his brother, I remember, me and Travis orchestrated a time when he was going to fly out and meet me. I didn't even know he was flying out. He was, I think, lying to me, saying that he was in LA, but he was actually going to college in San Antonio. So he came out here. We met for an afternoon, chatted, and he was like, my buddy's brother just got signed to the Dodgers. So we're going to be out here in the spring. And I'm like, okay, call me, you know? And so with that, him and Tony Loney come out here, started trying to, you know, that got them to LA, you know, they're probably 19, 20 years old. That got them to LA with a car. And then they started coming to the studio with me. And then soon after that, you know, he just started to get steam, because right before he did that, right before he moved to LA, he released the Lovesick video. And then that was enough to start to try to get labels to get, you know, interested in him. And then, you know, I saw his talent develop over those like year and a half, 2 years that I was corresponding over the internet. He was out here, we started making some records, you know, and then we just started to team up from there. I started to bring him to sessions with me, and then, you know, he started building the Al Pharaoh.
And then, so you became his manager, right? Was that was before you started bringing him around, or like in the midst? Probably in the midst.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to get involved without any kind of paperwork, you know. So after, you know, I just wanted to test it out for a while, and then once that was in place, then I really started to look for the agent, right? Then I would spend more time in the studio. Then I was flying us to South by Southwest and trying to get him gigs, introducing him to all the people I know in the industry, taking him to publishing companies. You know, there was a lot of hype in the industry around Travis before there was hype with him as an artist. Like that, before fans knew who he was, you know, a lot of industry insiders, you know.
Okay. He was on radar.
Yeah, exactly. So it was interesting.
Was this your first venture as as managing someone?
Absolutely, yes.
And what made you like even want to go down that path?
Because I had seen Plain Pat and Emil Haney help develop Kid Cudi's career.
Okay.
Right. So I remember Cudi from day one, where he didn't have any, you know, he didn't have a deal. He was just some kid, you know, trying to get on. Right. So, and even before that, like I said, on the first college dropout tour, you know, I was trying to piece it together. Like I had been in Hollywood long enough at that point. I had worked for Ron Fair, you know, Kanye, and I'd met him. I saw him go from producer to putting out College Dropout to his first tour. Like Kanye's first tour was just a bunch of, you know, in the spring, you know how colleges have concerts in the quad?
Okay.
So that was Kanye's first tour. Like, and he did a bunch of House of Blueses and a bunch of concerts in the quad. And so halfway through the show, I was like, how did you get these shows? And then Don C was like, oh, Kara Lewis, you know, he had an agent. So then I started to, like I said, again, reverse engineer. So I was asking the promoters at the different venues how they were doing this, right? So then I saw that that's how he built outside of the studio. An agent is what builds you in your career, you know, not only, and then so then I saw, after Kanye did that, then I saw Pat do that with Cudi, right? So then Cudi's career started, and then right as soon as he started popping off, he got this HBO series Made in America, right? And then that gave Cudi a more not international, but completely national look, where before he was like on tour with A-Track, and he was like in that, you know, Brooklyn, Silver Lake kind of world. But once you get that making How to Make It in America look on HBO, then now you can tour regional, or, you know, nationally, right?
Okay.
And then once you get that, like a little bit of steam, then all the producers want to send you beats, right? Because they see that if they get you, you know, on a major record, then they're going to make dough, right? So everyone's approaching you to want to be a part of it. Once there's any kind of spark, it like attracts more fire. So I watched them do that with Cudi and help build Cudi's career. And so I was like, man, I've seen Kanye go from producer to artist, you know, I've seen Cudi, you know, so I'm like, let's try this, you know, and that's why I was thinking about it. I had looked at some other artists and I was interested in it. It was also the same time I was on the Watch the Throne tour, and that was like, so right when I quit touring too is when Travis moved to LA, I quit touring all in like that same 3-month period. So I was looking for a new activity as a new dad where I didn't have to, I mean, I spent from 2004 and, you know, I was on the road for 7 years, you know what I mean? So I needed to think of a new way to not, you know, I was making my money by being in the studio or performing with Kanye, doing playback and things like that. So it's like I wanted to have a new way. And so my thought was management would be something I could do while I was at home mixing. You know what I mean? It's like management is kind of like, you know, wake up in the morning, make a bunch of phone calls, you know, mix a bunch of, you know, do my mixing work first thing in the morning because I do a lot of international work. So I have artists and, you know, people that I'm dealing with in the UK or China or Japan, dealing with all that. The artist doesn't even wake up till 3 p.m, right? So you can get a lot done before 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would get all that business out of the way, and then whatever he needed, if I needed to take him to photo shoot or to this session or to this meeting, then that would go from 3 to 6, and then in the studio with him until midnight, and then, you know.
So were you also like working on the music too, like engineering and stuff like that as well?
I tried not to engineer because I really tried to, I didn't want to, you know, because I was, you know, his lawyer didn't like me and I didn't want to be around, like, I wasn't trying to be the engineer guy, right? That is just trying to get an artist so I can get a check for being the engineer.
Okay.
I was trying to, and I didn't even want to touch the computer. I learned during Dark Twisted Fantasy, the less you touch the fucking Pro Tools computer, the way more respect you get. Okay? It's like artists, you know, producers come in. That's why, like, Rick Rubin never touches the fucking computer. Never, you wouldn't even know. You know what I mean? But look, everyone admires and respects him.
Yeah, that's a gem right there.
Yeah. So it's like, so I remember at one point I got flown out during Dark Twisted Fantasy, and Andrew, the other engineer, was already there. And so I just sat next to Kanye or over in the corner with Jeff, and I just talk, right? You know, we'd discuss things. Maybe I'd record a little bit here and there. But then people would be coming in that if I was sitting in the chair in front of the computer screen, they wouldn't talk to me. But now, since I wasn't the guy tied to the computer, they were like, oh, man, so what have you been working on? What do you think?
Oh, man.
I had like this newfound respect.
Yeah. But now that's a gem, but I don't want the people to get confused because I don't want people to think that where they are now at ground zero that they can just assume because being an engineer is an amazing way to get indoors and get in sessions and build relationships. So I don't want people to think like, oh, I got to start out being too good to be an engineer and touch the computer. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but it's like, I don't know why in this culture that the guy that is doing all the work gets none of the respect.
Yeah, that is crazy. That's the person that gets
why
yelled at.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. So yeah, man. So, you know, we're talking about, you know, management and stuff like that. And you kind of already answered my question because my question was going to be, you know, you've worn a lot of hats, you know, throughout your career, and especially at this point. And I was going to ask you how you balance that, but it seemed like you kind of naturally dropped off certain roles and picked up certain roles. It wasn't like you were doing it all at once kind of thing. Or were you still like while you were managing Travis, were you engineering for other clients or were you just strictly?
Yeah. No, I mean, I was, all the above. It's like, you know, even during, what was it? Yeezus, we were, you know, that's when we were making Alfaro. That's when we released the Upper Echelon, Quintana, did the South by Southwest where he was on the Woodies. I was, you know, all the above. I was doing all the above. And I think that was, you know, it was tough. Honestly, I hated managing. That's why I don't do it anymore, because it's like, I don't like being that person, you know. And I might do it again because there is potential, you know, there is money in it, but it's just like, some people, all managers do is argue and talk on the telephone, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I guess if you like to argue about splits and advancing shows and, you know, then that's the job for you. But I don't know. I mean, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I'm getting the vibe that you're more of like a to yourself kind of. You just like to do your own thing, kind of chill vibe.
Or at least be creative. You know, managers aren't creative. You know, You know, it's like even the engineer with what little, all the orders you're taking and the little creative input you get to put into the final product, you're still not on the phone all day returning emails and calls.
Yeah, it's much more, you know, mundane, you know, kind of task.
Damage control. Management is damage control. And what at the same time, you know, pushing the artist and finding opportunities and branding opportunities, and, you know, but it's just like making sure the rental car shows up to the video shoot and the shoes are coming and the product sponsors sending over the da-da-da. It's like,
Yeah. It's not glamorous. I get it. It's more, you know, everyday
some
stuff.
people like it though. I mean, some people, like, I know people that have that personality that really that brings them joy.
For sure, man. So I see, you know, you kind of, so did you work on Jesus King?
No.
Okay.
I worked on Yay, but I didn't work on Jesus King.
Okay. Was it just a personal reason, or just it just didn't?
They didn't call.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean? They got the number, you know. But I think it's all like, you know, you got to stay in the circle. I don't know. I had brain surgery in 2013.
Okay.
And so I don't know. I think after that, my shit meter just kind of like was like, fuck it. I don't know. I don't put up with shit anymore. I don't know. It's weird. My wife turned me into an asshole, but I just think that, I don't know. I gave up smoking. You know, I was a different person though before. You know, when I was managing Travis, I smoked cigarettes all the time, and I'd just be like on the phone, like, oh, fuck you, you know, you know, it's like
that was stress management, yeah.
You know, I was just, you know, I don't know. And now it's just different. It's different. Maybe it's my age, but maybe it was the surgery.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine after going through something like that, I would assume there'd be, you know, some changes that, you know, came about from.
And you get older, you know, it's like when we're doing Life of Pablo, you know, 12, 14-hour days, it gets old after a while, man. You know, when you're 20, 30 years old and you slept 4 hours in the last 3 days, that's acceptable. Or like, but at this point in my life, I can't do that. You know, I can't do that. So if you're calling me and you're paying me to do that, I might have to say no. Or I might give you some attitude because I don't want to do it. Or I might just fucking leave.
Yeah.
We might need to find somebody else to be your 24-hour, you know, person to put your foot up their ass.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. Man, I get to like the, you know, just aging in general, because man, I've just noticed changes in the way I think about things and approach, you know what I mean? Just as, you know, I'm 27, which I know is still, you know, pretty young, but there's still definitely changes between being like 27 and 18, 21 kind of thing. Like, especially like, you know, as of recently, I just kind of, I don't know. I don't even know how to call it, but it's something that I feel like you don't understand until you go through it, kind of thing.
Okay.
I guess I'm just getting old.
When you're young, you can play basketball till fucking midnight.
Yeah.
Every day, if that's your thing, you know. And then once you hit like 20, you're like, you know, I need to take a break.
No, I get it. So man, what's driving you mostly now? Like what inspires you, and what's your passion now?
I mean, you know, just making good music, you know. Just to make good music. Stay current, stay relevant, you know, just to be a part of what popular culture is.
Okay.
You know, you have to change. I think, you know, you have to adapt to whatever is cool, you know, in some fashion, or you won't, you know, you can't still be, you know, I couldn't still be making grunge music as much as I love Sonic Youth and even Sonic Youth's career, you know. You have to, it's like I've lived so many through different musical genres, you know, and to try to adapt even to this day to the next musical genre, whatever it might be.
Staying relevant, I get it. So I did leave off a question. Before you got on, I had played a clip from your interview where you talk about the importance like of going to the studios and networking in studios was for, you know, Travis and you know, kind of before that, you know, and how things have shifted to, you know, bedroom working from home kind of thing, and you know, with producers just kind of being content with being at home making beats, especially, you know, if you live in a city and you're not, you know, in a music hub like LA, Atlanta, or whatever. man, just talk about, you know, that thought, and do you think it's still important to do your best to try to get in rooms and take trips to these places and just see where it can take you, and where what you can do
I
with
think
it?
so, absolutely. I mean, I think with Corona, I think it's gotten intensely hard.
Yeah.
You know, even to the point where I was at a studio the other day, I wore a mask the whole time.
Really?
You know, even though it's not, you know, I don't know, who knows? And it was only like 4 people in the room, but it's like, if I bring that shit home, I would rather die than have my wife fucking scream at me for the whole time I'm ill. You know what I mean? So, I think, yes, you do, as a young person, need to be around those people, because like face to face is gonna win a million times over sending emails or DMs. I think at the same time you have to work in both worlds, right? You have to be face to face. I think though, this is one thing with Airbnb and cell phones and all this shit that I didn't have when I was in my 20s. It is easier, and it might be better for kids not to live in New York or LA, because then if you live in Kansas City, you know, when you come to LA, it costs so much to pay your rent and so much shit's going on. I see a lot of people lose focus of
Yeah.
their music, right? Because you gotta get a job, or you gotta, like, you know, so if you perhaps lived in a smaller city and took trips to the
Yeah.
urban, and then you could go back. It's like the best of both worlds, in my opinion. You know,
No.
because then you can go back and work on your art, and then go back to Atlanta or go back to LA. But like David, who's the kid you did? I can't remember.
David Young and Kim.
Yeah. Like he's the example, you know, that's a great story. I knew David from I knew him from Chalice forever, you know, but that's how you really get in, right? That's the same thing. Like that without that grind, he would have never got to Hit Boy, you know,
Right.
and then without that connect, then you can't broaden your reach. So, you know, it works both ways.
Yeah.
That's the old engineer hustle kind of mentality, but I think that also works, because then you're around these people, you see what works, you see what doesn't work. Where if you're in the bedroom, you know, just making beats, yeah, once a week you might stumble on some fire shit, you know, I don't know, you know, but if you're in there critically watching, you know, but then what happens is people don't pay attention, you know, don't get the sessions, just like he said, you can't sit. A million times I'll be in studios and the assistants will just be looking at Instagram the whole fucking time. They don't give a fuck. Like what David said, he would sit in the sessions. He wouldn't look at his phone. He wouldn't look at his laptop. You know, he'd be right there ready for a comment. Like when I was an assistant, I would always have a comment ready as I sat in the corner. Like I already have it in my mind that I like this part. So when they stopped the thing, they said, "Man, what do you think about it?" I say, "Oh, man, I really like how the hook said da 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 da." You know what I mean?
Be in the moment kind of thing.
Yeah. So whenever anybody, you know, don't speak unless what comes out of your mouth is fucking genius, was always my thing, you know, when I was a young person, you know, in the studios. And I also had this line where I'd be like, you know, because people would play beats, right? You know, or oftentimes when people come in and they'd be like, "Oh man, let me play you this new song I just cut with so-and-so. And I'm gonna play you this track that, you know, I just did with Mariah Carey," and they put it on. I'd be like, "Oh shit, you got the new first single?" And they'd be like, "Oh man, you think this should be the single?" And they love you, right? Because you're stroking their ego, you know. But if you sit in the corner on fucking Twitter, all butthurt because no one's playing your beats, it's like they can feel that energy.
Yeah, 100%, man.
You know?
I think one thing too, like I think with my generation and the younger generation, like I think there's like a ego thing that comes into it, like, and I don't, and more often than not, you know, when I meet, you know, certain people that may be at like ground zero, they kind of have this pride with them that they're like, "Oh, I can't be that guy that, you know, is, you know, there in the moment, you know, trying to learn, be the fly on the wall, has a comment ready." Like they kind of, they got to play the cool guy. Like they're just sitting here like, "Shit, I got shit going on. Like I don't need to be here," kind of thing. And I think that, you know, that definitely holds people back. And then the people that I, you know, gravitate to are definitely more the people that are, you know, what we talked about, like the Davey Young and Kim's, like they're, yo, I'm here. Like I know I'm not shit right now, but I'm, you know, I want it, kind of thing.
I think it's very important. I think you know, it's you know, it's I get, as a parent, I think it's like the participation trophy has ruined America.
Mm.
Because every young person believes that they have the right, and since they just showed up, they should be the winner. You know what I mean? And so, and I think it translates into music culture. You know, and it's also another thing is like what I say is when I was in a band, the first person to tell me that I sucked would be the drummer or the bass player, right? So I had to work harder on the songs. You know, I had to make the songs better, or they would, you know, if they had a song idea, they would be like, this shit sucks. We're not going to play this song, right? Where if you're a bedroom producer, no one's going to tell you that. No one's going to push you, you know, to make better music because you're by yourself smoking good weed in the bedroom, you know, high on your own gas. And then you play it to your buddy who has nothing better to do with his life except blow smoke up your ass because he's going nowhere too. And then you're all like, you're hyped on some shit that's fucking trash. And then you turn around, you're 30 years old and you haven't sold a beat. What are you going to do?
Man, I hear everything.
It's not even selling beats because you get a producer advance, but that's not publishing. You're not making royalties on that. You're getting some fucking Spotify, you know, what, 1 million streams is $5,000, $4,000.
Yeah.
It's like the reality is you have to be so successful in the music business to even have any kind of livelihood. It's ridiculous, you know. And everyone's just like, oh, fake it till you make it. And then it's so simple because anybody can get a good 808 pack and a sample and Fruity Loops and you're good, you know.
Preach, man. I'm hearing everything you're saying. So yeah, man. I mean, we definitely want to get some people in. I don't know how much time you have left here, man, but I definitely want to get some people in for Q&A.
Sure.
But man, definitely. So if you guys want to tap into the Q&A, definitely click the link in the description. You know, as always on the Zoom. There's a couple of you, man. I know you guys will come in here and ask some good questions. We got one person waiting. I'm gonna go ahead and add him in. Yeah, man. Let's hear a riff, man. Oh, another thing too. I wanted to talk about how you your email is in the description. So you said, you know, if they want to send samples or if they're artists are looking to get songs mixed and stuff, definitely reach out to you. Yes,
in the description we have my email for mixing, and then the latest first gen release, Bon Bon and Glace, which was just on New Music Friday last week, and the first gen, my record labels, Instagram and my own Instagram. So,
got you. So first gen is your label?
Yes, sir, with Matthew Mizrahi.
Okay, dope, man. Real quick, how did that venture come about?
You know, just I just wanted to try it. After the management thing, this was another capacity that, you know, you know, it's easy now with distribution and all this digital, you know, marketing and everything. So that was the attempt, you know. So we're trying to start small, and, you know, I'm trying to model it after like XL, the label XL. Do not, you know, not necessarily genre specific, but just whatever good music is, you know.
Okay.
And so I met this kid, Matthew Mizrahi. He was going to medical school, and he was very unhappy with his life. And he was like, man, I really want to get in the music game. And he came and interned with me one summer between his first year and his second year of med school. And so then he dropped out of medical school right before he took his boards, and then he dropped out and started his company, you know. And I just, you know, I needed somebody that, you know, he was not so concerned about what I used on an 808 kick drum, and more about, you know, he's all about relationship building, which is another thing. You know, he's way more big into that than I am. And I think that was perhaps something that, you know, I neglected. Like you asked earlier, like when you're in these rooms with these people, were you really developing relationships? And I was somewhat, but I think, I don't know, not as much as I could have been. And I think that, you know, that's something that he's good at is develop. So I've given him access to all my relationships, you know, from 20 years in LA to help me build these relationships with this brand.
Dope. Most definitely. I'm definitely going to tap in, and I definitely encourage everyone to tap into that release. We got, you know, links to it. That's the FMM link in the description.
Yep.
But yeah, let's go ahead and start adding people in. We got Greg Johnson first up. Let's get him in here. He's been in here. I hope he didn't walk away from his
Greg Johnson.
That's his tag, man. He's gonna sample that.
Sure.
Greg, you there, man, or did you? Oh, there he is.
Hi, buddy.
My guy, what's going on, man? Beat Juggernaut.
Hey,
Greg, how are you?
hey, well, how you doing?
Good, good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, your connection is real
Hold on.
choppy though. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's spotty. Hold on.
Tap into the Q&A in the link in the description if you guys want to tap in.
How are you?
I'm gonna let you get it together. Beat Juggernaut. Let's let Meek go ahead, man. Meek.
Hello, Meek.
Yo, what's up? Mic check.
Yo, welcome back to the morning show.
Wait, who's talking?
You're talking. Mute the YouTube video. That'll probably help you out.
What's up? How you doing, sir? How you doing, CEO? Anthony, how you feeling this morning, guys?
Well, thank you very
Doing
well.
good, man.
Hey, it's good to hear from you, Anthony. Absolute legend. Definitely have read your credits in a couple works, and so awesome that you ended up on the morning show. I swear, Dylan gets gems on the show.
Appreciate that, man.
Just had a quick question, man. From where you've come up and from what you've seen in the industry, I just want to know. Just as this may be like more of a creative type of question, but I just want to know, like, as a songwriter and a producer engineer, what is the thing that like intrigues you from a new artist? What is the thing that will capture them? Like that person who went to medical school, took his main exam and then dropped out just to make an album, you know? What is it about an artist that's really going to catch you as a producer?
Like supernatural talent. You know what I mean? Above average talent. Like a lot of people can play and sing, but it's like, I've trained my ear now for a long time.
Yes.
Like really specifically on trying to obtain perfect pitch, right? So now when I hear people sing or I hear them create a beat, I can really assess their ability of long-term success, or if they have the goods. It's like the basketball analogy. Everybody like has one thing that they can do. Somebody who's good from the left side 3-point line, but you put them on the right side, they can't shoot, right? So to assess that from a young talent, that they have the ability to really do whatever it takes to become successful or work in whatever capacity they need to.
Now, adding on to that, if you don't mind, say you get that person that's super talented, that 1 in a million dude who is like just a killer singer, happens to produce and engineer his own stuff, but then he gets to the studio and he's like one of those guys. He's like, I don't need to be here right now. I got my own shit going on. And then you kind of bring him in with that, and then he comes in with that attitude. What would you do in that situation?
I would leave.
Yeah.
Because, man, like the artist has to want it the most. That's another thing with Travis. There's no one that wanted it more in the room than Travis. He never took a day off. He never played fucking video games. He never went to the fucking movies. He never played, the only thing that he ever did when he was in that early era of his career was go to the studio. If he didn't have a studio in his house, he would go to find somebody he'd go to Tommy Brown's studio. If he wasn't at Tommy Brown's studio, he'd come to my studio. If neither of us were in town, he would find somebody else's studio to go to. It was like the not taking no for an answer. Not, it's like too many people get caught up with other things in life. It's like the attention to detail. And if somebody wants to come in and, like I was in a session the other day and, their friends were all like, man, I need I don't even remember what it's called. they were talking about pills. I don't take pills. So I don't. I'd pay $50 for something. And I was like, bro, I'm fucking done with these people. You know what I mean?
Already.
I was like, bro, we ain't going to get shit out of this fucking session because everybody's talking more about pills and weed and bottles. I mean, it's like, even if I do make a beat for them, like, and they sing on it, what are we gonna, you know?
Exactly. I have this trouble too with an artist that I work with. We've been working for a couple years, and I think he's extremely talented dude. And I produced probably 10 or 12 songs for him, but he's not taking the initiative to move further. And it's this point of where, okay, maybe I feel like if this is not, even though he is talented and we make great music, if he's not doing anything with it, it's kind of holding me back from pushing forward and finding another person to make beats for, or another rap or another artist to make songs for. So.
I think, you know, as a young person, your time is the most valuable asset you have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, that's the biggest thing. And that's something when I relocated to LA, you know, I didn't make friends. I didn't start, you know, because in Chicago I drank a lot and I'd go to the bars and party and blah, 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 blah. That shit just was completely cut out of my life. I didn't even socialize with anyone that did drugs. I didn't socialize with anyone that drank. That was not my concern. You know, I did, you know, all it was studio every day as much as possible, you know, and that was another thing. It's like I said earlier, when you made the choice to leave the studio with a producer and go independent, it had to be with the right person. It's the same thing. You have to assess, like I said before, what do you judge? You know, I judge, you know, the innate skill. If you don't have that better than average talent, then I can't spend my time with you, because you just wasted that time. You've wasted that day.
Amen. I agree with you. I feel like at the end of the day, the music really has to speak for itself. And if you can't let the music speak to the world like it wants to, then it's not going to work. I don't know. I have this saying that, because I come from like DJ world where, you know, when I started making music, I actually ended up DJing more than making music, you know, so I ended up playing other people's songs more than making them, got caught into that lifestyle, like you said, going to bars, playing shows, all that stuff. And then I learned it was like, well, all these people I'm hanging around, like, even though they're getting me to shows and getting me to play shows, they're not necessarily there to watch me play. They're there to just be there and be this like posse slash, you know, meet girls, whatever. And I came up with this phrase, and that it's about the celebration, not the intoxication. It's about celebrating your accomplishments with your friends as opposed to intoxicating yourself from the accomplishments you didn't achieve. And what you said right there is like 100. Like, thank you so much. Like, thank you so much for being an amazing inspiration. You've made amazing music, and I can't wait to see what comes out of you next, bro. I really can't. Thank you so much.
Well, check out our latest release here we have in the description.
Absolutely, I definitely will. And Dylan, you are a man. You can catch some loops from me this week in the loop contest Gmail. I sent some loops to TB last week, but I was going to send some more this week, brother.
Bet it up, bro. Appreciate you, man, as always.
Yeah, much love. Keep it real.
Good weekend. Or good week.
Beat Juggernaut, man. Did you get it? It looks like you got it together, man. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on? How we living?
Doing good, man. How about you? Welcome back.
Good. Anthony, how did we not cross paths? I'm from Springfield, Illinois, and yeah. So we used to go, and you and I think I'm like a year older than you. So, you know, we used to play. When I played ball, we used to go up there to Peoria Manual and Woodruff and you know, Q&D and all that. And then what was that?
Midwest represent.
Oh yeah, hey, you from the 309, I'm from the 217, you know. So now I know it. And then you went down to Carbondale, but I went up to UIC. The crazy thing about it is that we both worked for Vince. I worked for Vince when the studio was on Superior, like in 2010, something like that. Yeah. So yeah.
House Music King, ladies and gentlemen.
House Music King. I learned ran into some good people. Did you ever? Were you with Abel Garibaldi?
No, I knew Abel at the time. He worked at Warzone. It was before. I think he took my job with Vince when I left. I worked for Vince right before I moved to LA in 1999.
Cool. Yeah. No. Yeah.
No, I still talk to Vince from time to time. I did it for him last week, actually, with
awesome.
Charles Jenkins. You know Charles?
Yeah, I know Charles. Yeah.
I fuck with Charles.
Yeah. I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to hit the community to tell them, hey, look, this guy right here is worth his weight in plutonium 10 times over. And I want you to know that, hey, you can come from the land of Lincoln and make it out and hit some good things and do good things for your community. He had some killer gems. When you're in the room, you know, prove that you should be in the room by 1, shutting the fuck up, and then 2, offering a good suggestion when you are spoken to, you know. So and the last thing I liked what you said was that music's not changing because people want to stay in that same lane, you know. Chicago gets slept on because there were so many like a lot of good artists come from Chicago, but then they go to Atlanta, LA, New York, you know, but people don't realize that they are originally from Chicago. You know. Chicago has a great scene. I mean, like, you know, from the Metro, Crowbar, you know, Exodus, you know, Smart Bar, all those places. You know, we could see all kinds of good bands, you know. So I want you guys to definitely check Anthony out, you know, and check him out pre-Travis, you know, so you can learn, okay, hey, it just wasn't like, you know, Travis just fell in his lap and then, you know, it was like an instant lottery ticket. No, he was winning before he hit Travis, you know, and then that's why Travis found him, you know. So, but I want to wish everybody well. This was a great interview, and I wanted to say thank you, and, you know, excuse me, thank you for representing Illinois. Dylan, once again, another killer interview. You know, this community, you know, is a beast, you know.
Yes, sir, it is, man.
There's tons of talent here. Thank you,
Shout out to the early game, man.
Right. Hey, and remember, keep moving forward and shine on, y'all.
Appreciate the love, bro.
Have a good week.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
All right, man. You got time for one more?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. We'll get one more in here, man.
Illinois in the house. Connecting.
Yo, you connecting, man? Get it together, man. There we go.
Yo, what's up?
What's going on, man? I was just about to be like, man, get it together. We're gonna have to go to the next.
Much respect to you both, Dylan. I've called in a couple times. What's up?
Yes, sir,
also,
man.
I've been reading The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Waddles. Thank you. Whew.
Man, that's the one right there.
I'm a longtime fan. I knew you before he started running the credits. I just want to break it down simply to a quick question. Is there a way I could pay to get some services from you, like a mix on a song or consultation for some of the artists on my label?
Sure. I mean, the email, I have the email in the description here, right, Dylan?
Yep, it's in there.
Yeah. So it's my mixing email for all things of that nature.
Well, I don't want to waste your time. I'm going to hit you in the email, and I appreciate the both of you.
Okay, thank you. Where are you from?
New York, Western New York by Buffalo.
Okay.
Rochester area.
My wife's from Jamestown.
Oh, I'm in Olean, New York. That's like a half hour away.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar. We've spent some time up there.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope to touch base with you and add value to you, and I appreciate the both of you.
Most
all right,
definitely, man.
you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, sir, man.
Thanks for checking it out.
Cool, man. Hey, I know you put the email in the description, but don't be surprised if that shit gets blown up, because the community definitely has that effect in the DMs and in the emails or whatever form of contact.
I mean, that's how I found Travis. So you know, maybe it'll be the next Travis from the interview.
Facts, man. That'd be fire.
That would be.
But hey, man, we appreciate your time this morning. Appreciate telling us your story and dropping advice, man. If you could leave it off on one thing, man, what's one thing, actionable step? Let everyone, whether they're a producer or artist, what's the best actionable step? After this interview concludes for them.
It's one of my favorite lines. I don't know. And Matthew says this is too negative, but I think it's a good one. It's not called show friends. It's called show business. So don't, it's all about relationships at the end of the day. right? And creating relationships with people. But you have to have the demand, right? If you don't have a skill that people demand to pay for, then you can't, it's not about friends. Friends aren't going to help you to the next level. Friends are not going to pay that mortgage. It's a business, right? You have to be so good at whatever you choose to do, whether you're the writer, the producer, the engineer, so good that it is undeniable that they need to pay you for your service.
100%, man. We'll leave it off with that, man. Appreciate your time once again, and definitely hope you get some fire in that email, man.
All right. Thank you, Dylan. Talk
Yes,
soon.
sir. Yes, sir, man.
Peace.
Yes, sir, man. Shout out to Anthony Kilhoffer, man. So what you guys think, man? Shoot me a text afterwards. Let me know how I did, man. I seen some good positive feedback. People are saying I'm doing good with the interviews. I'm getting good gems out. But if you're in Text Gang, if you're not, there's Text Gang information. Oh, I don't think it's gonna pull up. Text Gang information. Man, you already know it. The link, the phone number's in the description. If you're not in Text Gang, man, you're big sleep. But shoot me a text after. Let me know, what you guys thought, and maybe some suggestions for, interviews, like, good questions to ask, good topics to go into. I'm interested to hear what you guys got to say. I'm always looking to get better. So definitely want some feedback. Let me know if there was a favorite part that you guys liked, or whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, man, I appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody that is been tapped in. This is episode 30 too, so episode 30. And there's some of you guys here that have been here since day one, and I appreciate you guys so much, man, from the bottom of my heart. And man, let's get 30 more in, man. 30 more, and then we'll talk, and we'll see about another 30 or another 60. So appreciate you guys, man. As always, you already know I will be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Let's get it.